In Syria, the Assad regime has fallen. Hafez al-Assad took power in 1971 and ruled Syria with an iron fist. Then Bashar al-Assad took over and did survived a decade-long civil war. Since 2010 and 11, when the series of protests against the various monarchies and other regimes started happening, I guess it started in Tunisia and then Algeria. But just a few days ago, he controlled pieces of Syria. Then suddenly, rebels launched a surprise attack in Aleppo. A few days later, they took Hama, then Homs. And then later, as they closed in on Damascus, Assad fled. What suddenly changed in last 2-3 months that Assad had to leave everything and flee to Russia?
11, when the civil war started,
Right.
Assad was on the back foot. As the rebel forces, that is the Sunni forces, they were able to take over a lot of control over the territory.
Right.
And in the backdrop, Islamic State emerged. So things are too complex.
So I remember at one point of time, the entire territory of Syria was controlled by 3 forces. One towards the border of Iraq was controlled by Islamic State.
Yes.
Then there was opposition forces, and then in the surrounding areas of capital and Sana'a, it was
the Assad forces, and
Yes.
fourth is one more force prevails, that is the Kurdish force. That Assad by and large was able to protect its regime not because of its own control or not because his army is having a upper hand. It is because of the interference of the external power. Iran want to protect the regime of Assad in Syria, which give Iran access to Lebanon Hezbollah, which is a political militia. Now Assad is a strategic ally of Russia.
because
Because of the support came from Russia. Russia provide a lot of air power.
What is the relevance of this topic for UPSC aspirants?
It would have been better if you would have asked this question in the beginning of the podcast.
So I will put this in the beginning.
That will be better. Even
Hello and welcome to the podcast. Hello Rahul sir.
hello.
A lot of things are happening in geopolitics,
Yes.
for which we are here to talk about. And there are so many things that are happening right now, out of which I think, for example, re-election of Donald Trump as president is important. What has happened in Syria is also very important, correct? And so let's, I think, first begin a discussion on Syria.
Sure.
What's happening in Syria. But before we discuss that, I hope you realize that in this conversation, I look like a scholar in political science and you look like a builder.
So I'll ask you the questions, then you can answer
Obviously,
and throw light on what exactly is going on in Syria
yeah.
and how it is important and relevant from exam point of view.
So you have proven the
And,
saying
then
correct.
I'll ask.
Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah, I think
Definitely.
Who knows better this than you? Huh?
Yes, correct. So you make me realize my position. And
I have said nothing. It's your perception.
Okay. So, sir, what we have seen in Syria since 2010 and 11, when the series of protests against the various monarchies and other regimes started happening, I guess it started in Tunisia and then Algeria, the phenomenon known as Arab Spring. And in the same domino effect, the movement against the Alawite regime of Assad also began. And the protest then took a violent turn. Then there was an involvement of multiple stakeholders, including Islamic State was very active. Since 2011 and 12, Assad has been able to maintain the regime for like 11-12 years now, despite so many forces working against the Assad as well. What suddenly changed in last 2-3 months that Assad had to leave everything and flee to Russia?
So, as you yourself have said that this a turmoil emerged in West Asia, and we know that turmoil with the name Arab Spring, when a series of protests started against the monarchies.
Right, sir.
Okay, and at that time civil war started in Syria.
Correct, sir.
Now, Syria is a Sunni majority state,
Right, sir.
while power is in the hands of Alawites, and Alawite is one of the sect of Shias. So, minority Shias controlling majority Sunni population.
Right, sir.
And blame on Assad that he's running an authoritarian regime, the way it was in Iraq.
Right, sir.
That minority Sunnis ruling majority Shias. Iraq is a Shia majority state, and
Correct.
blame on Saddam that he was a
Sunni.
dictator Sunni holding control through force. Same
Correct.
is the blame on Assad.
Correct, sir.
Now, in 11, when the civil war started,
Right, sir.
Assad was on the back foot. As the rebel forces, that is the Sunni forces, they were able to take over a lot of control over the territory.
Right.
And in the backdrop, Islamic State emerged. So things are too complex.
So I remember at one point of time, the entire territory of Syria was controlled by three forces. One towards the border of Iraq was controlled by Islamic State.
Yes.
Then there was opposition forces, and then in the surrounding areas of capital and Sana'a, it was just the Assad.
The Assad forces, and
Yes.
fourth is one more force prevails, that is the Kurdish forces.
Kurdish forces, correct.
In the
Fighting
Syria,
for their own nation state.
in the Syria, along the Turkish border.
Turkish border.
So
Correct, sir.
the geopolitics is too complex.
Too complex.
Okay, so not going into every detail.
Correct,
So let's focus on this aspect.
Right,
that
sir.
how come when for more than a decade he has been able to protect its regime, what happened suddenly that his regime has collapsed within 2 weeks, in less than 2 weeks.
Right.
So there are multiple set of factors
That are
which has
responsible.
led to this particular outcome. Now, first thing is Assad never able to defeat completely the militants. And when I'm using the word militant, I'm talking about a political entity that is HTS. Okay, and HTS is the outcome of one of the branch of Al Qaeda. Okay, so HTS is seen as one of the branch of Al Qaeda.
Successor of Al Qaeda.
Yes, successor of Al Qaeda, and the name of the HTS has emerged from Jabhat al Nusra, one of the branch of Al Qaeda in West Asia. Okay, Al Qaeda has its Al Qaeda is seen as a worldwide terrorist outfit having its branches in different parts of the world. Al Qaeda's branch of West Asia, Al Qaeda branch of Africa, Al Qaeda branch of Asia. Okay, and in earlier we have also
It's like a
discussed that
transnational terrorist
yes, it's a
organization.
transnational terrorist outfit
Yeah.
who has declared jihad against the West and
West.
Western imperialism. Okay,
Correct.
so HTS is the outcome of that, and HTS was controlling the Idlib region, and his leader, he was running the regime within Idlib. So first thing, Assad was never able to completely defeat the militants. Okay, so he was
So you want to say that the authority of Assad was already very limited?
no, he was having a lot of authority, but not a complete authority over Syria.
Over the entire territory.
Yes, because the Kurdish areas were governed by the
Kurdish
forces. This Idlib region was governed by HTS, and they acquired the experience of running a small regime by running Idlib province.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
So one thing is this, that he never able to completely defeat the militants,
Right.
and now despite US left from Syria under Trump announced withdrawal from Syria, as by and large US was able to defeat Islamic State. So once Islamic State was defeated, IS, we know the name goes Islamic State for Iraq and Syria. Once IS was finished from the region, US decided to leave. But US always kept pressure on Syria by putting sanctions. So one thing, the Syrian economy was very weak because of the sanctions from the West. Second, the forces of Assad, they are not much motivated because they are not being paid on time. So their morale is already on the lower side. Also, there is a tiredness among them because of this continued civil war which is going on in Syria. So one thing is they are low in motivation. Syrian economy is
Badly hurt.
Now, third major factor which has led to this sudden downfall is that Assad by and large was able to protect its regime not because of its own control or not because his army is having a upper hand. It is because of the interference of the external powers. Now, Assad is a strategic ally of Russia. Russia has a lot of interest in Syria.
That was my next question actually. But let's first finish this.
We'll come to that part later. So one thing is Russia interfere on behalf of, as I said that earlier, there was a lot of setback for the Assad forces. But how Assad was able to keep its control intact?
Because of
the support came from Russia. Russia provided a lot of air power. But this time Russia is too busy with its own military adventure in Ukraine. So as Russia is too busy, Russia was not able to support the way it supported earlier.
For last 10 years.
Second, Iran has not been able to, as I said, it's the Shias who are in power. And if you see in West Asia, I'll tell you a very interesting thing. Iran is having a lot of allies. but all are not a state ally. They are all non-state allies. That is Hamas, Hezbollah,
Hezbollah,
and Houthis. They are not
Houthis,
state. Only state ally of Iran in this region is Syria.
Syria.
And that's why Iran want to protect the regime of Assad in Syria, which give Iran access to Lebanon Hezbollah, which is a political militia and seen as a close ally of the state of Iran. So this give Iran access to Hezbollah. But this time, Iran, because of a lot of tensions with Israel, again Iran, because of its own issues and problem, not able to back the regime of Assad the way it supported earlier. And recently we have seen Israel hurting Hezbollah badly, and many senior leaders of Hezbollah has died.
Have been
So Hezbollah has also not been
neutralized.
able to come in support of Assad. Realizing this, HTS relies to take the advantage of this situation, and as already the morale of the Assad forces is too weak, this is how they are able to completely control Syria within 2 weeks.
So, sir, while answering the first question, you mentioned that Putin and Russia were always in support, and this time, because they are diverted in some other conflict, mainly Ukraine, Putin was not able to support the way it has been supporting since last 1 decade. Now, the question is, what is the interest of Russia that is being served? Is geopolitically Syria very important?
Russia's interest lies, Russia has its geopolitical interest.
Right,
As if you see the port of Tartus in Syria,
right, sir.
Assad has given the naval military access
Right.
to Russia over Tartus.
Right.
And this is the only territory which Russia is having outside the Soviet. And Tartus port gives Russia access to Mediterranean, which gives which helps Russia to keep the threat of NATO away.
Away.
So basically, Syria's importance lies for Russia towards its access to Mediterranean. Other than this, if you see when Russia annexed Crimea, the only objective of Russia was to keep its naval military bases intact.
Right, sir.
There also.
Right, sir.
So, I'll tell you, just in a minute, I'll tell you more broader interest of Russia. So
Right.
Russia's interest, rather than protecting the regime of protecting the regime of Assad, its only interest is to protect its own strategic bases here. As Russia also has an air base in Syria. Russia has a naval military base in Tartus in Syria. This is Russia's interest, because Russia's interest does not lie to escalate tensions with Israel here. Russia does not want to involve in Arab-Israel conflict. Iran is seen as a strategic ally of Russia in the region, but Russia does not want to interfere in Israel-Iran rivalry. Russia's interest lies with its geopolitical interest, that is to keep its naval military bases intact. And this new change will going to impact the interest of Russia in a big way. Another loser in this new dimension will be Iran. As I said, this regime of Assad gives Iran access to Hezbollah. Okay, so it will going to impact Iranian interest in the region. And if you see who will going to be the major gainer of this new happening is the state of Turkey, because it will increase the influence of Turkey in the region. And HTS is backed by Turkey in the region itself. So these are the rebel forces which were backed by Turkey, because Turkey right now under Erdogan is again aspiring to revive the glory of Ottoman.
And these are the areas where Ottoman
which were the part of the Ottoman. So who will going to be the gainer of this? One is Turkey.
It will give a huge boost to his image.
Yes.
That he is working in the direction of re-establishing
Yes, and
the
Turkey wants to
Turkish
again
Empire.
establish himself as the leader of Islamic world.
Yeah.
So one, Turkey will going to gain hugely out of these new political updates, and other than this, Israel, because Israel wants to take the advantage of this political vacuum to acquire more territory over Golan.
Yeah. And anyways, in this in last 5 years, we have seen Abraham Accord, where the leaders of the monarchies of Middle East have joined openly hands with Israel, or at least have given the.
Yes.
So in that context, it is very easy for Turkey to prove that they are the only sole, successor of the Islamic world.
Yes, and
by
that
not
is-
compromising
that is
on
why
any of
if you
the.
see, after the abrogation of Article 370,
Yeah,
other than
Turkey.
Pakistan and China, only country who came in support of Pakistan is Turkey.
Turkey,
Because right
okay.
now Turkey wants to project itself that
There was no statement from Saudi
Yes,
Arabia,
no
from
one.
any of
Either
the
from OIC,
country.
only Turkey,
Turkey.
because Turkey wants to project that it is the protector of the interest of the Muslims world.
World over. Ummah.
Yeah.
Right, sir. Right, sir. Sir, one more question is that after going through such turmoil and violence for like 15 years, where do you see Syria headed? Now that the most likely successor of the state will be governed by a very prominent faction, HTS, which is backed by Turkey, as you said. So, Do you think that Syria in coming times is going to see peace and stable society under STS leadership?
It will be hope against hope. What I can say
Okay,
is, like now, there are so many factions already. We can see
right.
Kurds are looking forward for their own interest.
Hmm.
Kurds has always been backed by US and the West.
Right,
HTS and the Syrian National Army of rebels backed by Turkey.
right.
There is one group in the south which is having the backing of Jordan.
Hmm.
So as there are all still there are so many factions, but the strongest one is HTS.
Hmm.
Now HTS leadership they are trying to project their moderate image that they will respect the
Hmm.
respect they will give respect to ethnic and the religious
Shias and
minorities.
Alawite should not fear.
They will respect
Hmm.
they will respect the culture of the religious minorities. They will not going to run a repressive regime. But considering their track record, the way they were running their administration in Idlib, it will be we have to see whether they will going to stick to their commitment which they are right now giving to the international community. We can draw parallels with Afghanistan because when the talks were going on in Doha between the US and the leaders of Al Qaeda, they also gave a lot of promises that this time they will not going to run a repressive regime. But under pressure from Islamic State of Khorasan, it is becoming difficult for the leaders of Al Qaeda to project their moderate phase. And again, we can see they have taken so many rights from the people of Afghan, not allowing the education of the girl child, which they promised they will. So, what kind of regime HTS will run? We have to. It's difficult to comment right now. Time will tell. Because even if they will aspire to run a moderate regime, they will going to face a lot of pressure from the fundamentalist faction. Because much of their fighters, they come from that particular mindset that they have waged a jihad against the West. So whether the leaders of HTS will able to manage these challenges which will going to come later from within, that time will decide. Because if you see, neither in Afghanistan yet Al Qaeda has been neither in Afghanistan Taliban has been able to fulfill all the promises. Right. Chaos is still not over in Iraq. And despite that, once the regime of Gaddafi fall in Libya, the hope was now Libya will be stable. No stability has yet been achieved in Libya. So whether Syria will going to be stable or not, it's difficult to comment right now on this. Challenges there are for STS. The road will not going to be that smooth for them. Correct, sir. It will come to know in 5 years from now. I guess within a year or so, things will be much clear. Yeah. Right, sir. So, having discussed all of this, makes me wonder as to why we are doing this podcast. Because I know the syllabus of PSIR. You also know the syllabus of PSIR. What is the relevance of this topic for UPSC aspirants? It would have been better if you would have asked this question in the beginning of the podcast. So I will put this. I will put this in the beginning. That will be better. Even I wanted to answer this question in the beginning itself when you asked about the regional dynamics of Syria. See it is like this. No one will going to how this is relevant for a UPSC aspirant. Now, one thing, those who are having PSR as an optional, and only those who want to know about international relations from the GS point of view. Never UPSC will going to ask you in your mains exam to write about the Syrian dynamics. Okay, neither there is a direct influence of India of these new political updates. Right. Because in mains the questions will revolve around the interest of India and the issues which will have a direct or indirect impact on our interest. Okay. Correct. So regime change will not going to impact India in any way. But still, even if this issue is not important from mains point of view, it is very important from interview point of view. Excellent. And interview is around the corner. And all those students who have PSIR as even their graduation or even if they do not have the PSIR as then also they are UPSC the general awareness about national and international at least they should know this thing. As many things we have said that okay, who is a group called HTS? What is the difference between Al Qaeda and Taliban? I have seen students not aware of the difference between these two outfits. Excellent. Yeah. Why Al Qaeda is seen as a terrorist outfit? What is the reason behind this? Yeah. The interview can be basically, I mean, the board can just ask a question, just give a brief outlook about what's happening in Syria. They can ask you about this, that whether Syria is an Arab state or not. Arab state or not. Okay. What are Russian interests in the region? Why Russia is backing Assad? Correct. Okay. at least students should know about this, that these three political militias, Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis, they are the allies of Iran.
Right.
Reasons for Iran-Israel tensions.
Right.
So this much of information about the West Asian politics is must for every aspirant,
Understood.
and especially if they are going for the interview.
And also, sir, we have seen every year there are in prelims also there are one or two questions at least on
Yes.
map locations,
Yes, map location.
and these are the sites which are frequently asked.
For sure.
The sites which see conflict and where the wars are going on in Africa and Middle East, they're
Yes,
frequently
yes,
tested.
yes,
So
yes.
from prelims, so
like
I have
from-
added
from-
my level of knowledge. You have added my
Like
your
from
level of
last
knowledge.
teacher. So tell the sites also, na, which were in the news, which can help us.
Yeah, so Aleppo, Sana, Raqqa, and then Idlib.
Idlib.
Yeah.
Okay, out of all, Idlib is most
Yes.
important, because Idlib is the last stronghold of rebels.
Right.
And when we are saying which rebels, it is this HTS. And they were
Hmm.
running their administration there. And the kind of administration they have run in Idlib, it is not much different from the kind of government which Assad was running. So now they are into power, and that is why I see
Right.
time will tell what kind of Syria they were going to create.
Right, sir. So when was the last time you were in Idlib?
Last time I was in Idlib, or when I want to visit Idlib. So
We'll leave- we will leave it
visit
for the
Idlib,
viewers
if I
to-
visit Idlib, probably you have to find someone else to record your podcast.
No, sir, we would not want to. We cannot afford that.
So
Um,
I'm fine in Delhi. I don't want to go to Idlib for the time being.
Okay, if that is what you want us to believe, we'll go with that. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast. Do subscribe our channel if you have not already subscribed to the channel. Do visit our app, which is Rahul Puri PSIR app, where you will get a lot of free content, including the test series discussion. You will get the solutions to the previous year question, and of course, we have a Perspective magazine, which is the one-stop solution for the dynamic PSIR subject. Once a month, we release a very short and sweet book, sir, less than 20 pages.
Yes.
I really liked it, and which contains all the important updates in IR as well as Indian governance and polity, which is paper 2B and 1B. Thank you. Stay tuned. ठीक है,
बढ़िया.
अब इसको रोकते नहीं है, इसी फ्लो में कर लेते हैं.
Trumps 2.0 प्रिपेयर कहाँ है?
अच्छा, तो रोकना पड़ेगा.
हाँ, मेरे को पॉइंटर्स तो निकालने पड़ेंगे ना. मैंने 3-4 दिन से वो निकाले हुए थे ना.